Are you and your family prepared for an emergency? Maybe the fake alien invasion. Now is the time to prepare yourself and your family for any event. Check out Prep Starts Now. Their mission is to provide high-quality preparedness products that empower individuals and families to be ready for any situation. They're committed to delivering reliable, trusted gear to ensure your safety, security, and peace of mind in times of need. Their product selection is carefully curated to provide you with the essential gear you need to stay prepared. From emergency kits to tactical tools, every item is chosen for its reliability and practicality. Prep Starts Now understands the importance of family, and their goal is to equip you with everything you need to build a solid plan for your family's preparedness. In today's ever-changing world, being prepared is more important than ever, and Prep Starts Now is here to help you and your family stay ready with quality products and practical guidance. Use the link in the description and get 15% off your order.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Walter Bosley. Be sure and check out my films. Doors of Perception is on Amazon Prime. Occult Louisiana is on Tubi, Roku Channel, and more. We are booking guests for December. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Walter Bosley. He is an investigator of historical occult mysteries, author of pulp fiction novels, and a screenwriter. After 19 years in national security, he is a licensed private investigator in California, where he also runs his small press publishing company, Lost Continent Library. Walter, welcome back. How you doing?
Great, Chris. Good to see you.
It's great to have you back on. Just since the last time we spoke, the reality we're in now might as well be an alternate dimension compared to then. People are more divided than ever, and the dystopian control machine keeps getting bigger and stronger with every high-impact event, and politically fueled psychosis seems to be rampant on both sides. Now with the emergence of the post-COVID conspiracy era, any information that we consume online must be run thoroughly through an enhanced bullshit meter. So much to navigate through these days, and I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts into everything. Before we do, remind the audience just a little bit about yourself and let them know how they can find out more.
Well, I spent 20 years in the United States national security community between the FBI and the U.S. Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and then doing special contract work in the world of counterterrorism. And, that gave me kind of a well-rounded look at how these different agencies work, how the community works. I saw much of the world doing that. And, after that, I started a publishing company to pursue publishing pulp adventure fiction. But I discovered that nonfiction research sells better, for one thing. But what happened was I kind of stumbled into that because I'd had a strange experience at Disneyland in the early 80s, and that resulted in a book. And that book led to my Empire of the Wheel books, and on and so forth. As it turned out, I ended up being a nonfiction writer unexpectedly, because I was pulling threads on, trying to find the truth about strange, odd things. And so, between the old career and the writing and publishing, that's what I've been up to the last probably 35 years.
Right on.
And as my name tag there says, walterbosley.com is a good place to find me, as well as the Walter Bosley channel at YouTube.
Perfect. Like I said in my intro, we're in a very interesting time. It's hard to gauge how much of what is occurring is a natural phenomenon, natural progression of human evolution, or being steered in some way. And I'm sure it's a combination of both, but looking at the way that events have played out, especially in the past 5 years, there is a quickening of changes happening that seem to be causing negative effects on humanity. There seems to be a bit of psychosis even surrounding everyday things like our political views these days. There's also a strange layer that I see of what I can only call synchromysticism. These strange connections, symbolism that shows up in events, things that seem to tie together. And there seems to be this layer of reality that plays on high-impact events, possibly has a level of metaphysical energy that is projected. You look at things like predictive programming, Mandela effect. We talked about the Ingersoll-Lockwood books. But let's start with the most recent events in the division, where we're at right now.
Well, what's going on today is a result, believe it or not, of 9/11, because this weird metaphysical layer, this thing that you're feeling, it indeed involves synchronicities and these things, but what it is a very dark psychological form of magic going on that was really that we were struck with 9/11. Now, I've talked about this in the past. I'm in that school of thought that I don't buy the story that just, a group of angry terrorists, pulled this off. Of course, I don't think anybody in this community has bought into that from day one. I'm in that school of thought, that camp that thinks that the terrorists they were used, okay? And what brought those towers down was very possibly a technology that hasn't been discussed within the context of 9/11, but that's a whole other series of shows. I recommend people check out Joseph Farrell and check out the book, Where Did the Towers Go by Judy Wood, for that discussion. Now, what I noticed, because I was really in my first year or so of working as a counterterrorism special consultant, and I was in Amman, Jordan when 9/11 happened. And one thing I remembered distinctly was this weird, automatic, almost robotic patriotism. The flag was everywhere. Everybody had it plastered on their cars, their homes, and there was just kind of this strange march. And here's the thing, before anybody gets upset at me saying that, remember what I said about my background. Okay, I'm a military officer, I'm a veteran, I'm a former federal agent, okay? I'm a patriotic guy, all right? So when I am noticing that this newfound patriotism seems induced strangely, think about that. It just seemed odd to me. And then increasingly over the years, the political divisions between Americans got continually more intense as we continue to get deeper into the 2 terms of George W. Bush, right? And then, of course, Obama gets elected, and wow, that just causes more division, all right? And then you have the media stirring that up. Now, what we're going to talk about today and what we're seeing these days, I'm somebody that I used to do a lot of things, but I used to watch Fox News, every day myself, because, I've always identified as conservative. Okay. I'm not a Democrat voter. Okay. So increasingly over the years, I noticed that what began to turn me off with Fox News was this culture war stuff that Bill O'Reilly was spinning up, and I'm the type of conservative that wants to hear about, okay, strong national security. Let's get the economy going, right? Let's keep the government out of our lives, as much as possible. You don't tell me this culture war crap. That didn't interest me. Well, by 2012, I was done with that source, because finally, my eyes opened and I realized, okay, they're just stirring the pot for their ratings and their customer base, their team, are the Republican conservative voters, who just want a constant, feed of all this stuff. Culture war. Well, we all know the division, during the Obama years that continued and intensified. We had the rioting in the streets and Antifa and all the lefty wackos were really, partying it up, being crazy. All the blue hair wokeism stuff that was going on that was really ended up driving everybody crazy, including, a lot of Democrats. Yep. So, after 8 years of that, plus all the shenanigans during the Obama administration, there were things that the Democrats were indeed doing that were flat out wrong. Yeah. There were things Obama did, for crying out loud, just flat out wrong. So you start with, and I'll get back to what I think the magic was that was done to us. 9/11 was an act of ultimate MK Ultra type stuff done to the American public, and it was done on purpose. And this induced rah-rah patriotism was 9/11 was the emergence of that. Okay. And then it exacerbated, and we had the emergence of this Tea Party thing.
Yes.
Still relatively harmless, just, this is what we want. So by the time we get to the end of Obama's term, we have Donald Trump. Okay. And MAGA version 1. Now, I voted for Trump multiple times. Never bought a red hat. Okay. Being in a cult, being too sports teamy about important things like politics is not my style. So I've never to this day owned a red hat. But in 2015, I remember telling friends, he's the guy, he's going to win. And they're like, are you crazy? Look at this guy. He's gruff. He's an a-hole. I'm like, yeah. And I think he's going to win because people are tired of the mealy-mouthed politicians and stuff. So that was his appeal. Believe me, I knew that it was just rubbing people the wrong way, pissing people off. I was in, the frame of mind in the position where it's like, you know what, that's what we need. A president who says naughty words, is a businessman and blah, 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 cares about the country, that kind of thing. And that's what I and many others saw in Trump the first time he ran. And so, of course, he gets elected. And, that causes even more crazy division, right? Because you have the people on the left that they see, oh boy, the pendulum's going to swing way over to the right. He didn't get an opportunity to do that because, the COVID thing happened. But, initially, I don't know about you, but I had my 401k at that time, and I saw my 401k stagnate through all 8 Obama years. Within the first 6 months of Trump's first term, my 401k almost doubles. At the end of the first year, it's more than doubled, and so forth. You get the idea. The economy was improving, all that. It was like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, he says embarrassing things. Yeah, I kind of wish he wouldn't do that. But, so then COVID hits. And to be honest, at the same time, the day before the quarantine hits, I get diagnosed with cancer. So, my focus is a little more personal, starting in 2020 and through COVID and all that. I mean, we all know that. And so things get weird late in his term. And then we have the whole January 6th debacle, which, at the time I'm looking at this and I'm going, come on, insurrection, give me a break. I could see that there were probably federal agents in the crowd, egging this stuff on. But, I felt like, okay, insurrection's a little bit, of an overreaction. And we end up with Biden for those 4 years. But the machine, led greatly by Fox News and other sources, now we have other conservative news sources. Yes. We have more podcasters and such, and they're just stirring it up. And they keep stirring it with culture war. Christmas is under attack. Christians are under attack. The very identity of the human female is threatened by the transgender,
our children, the borders, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and all this. It's stirring it up, keeping everybody in a state of agitation. Okay, right out of the MK Ultra playbook, I might add. So then I begin to see, and here's where we're getting to where this is going to go, if you're asking my opinion. My flag was when I learned how deeply entrenched the Heritage Foundation and this Christian nationalism movement was into Trump's new run for president. I wrote a book about this 2 years ago, about NIMSA and NIMSA, How America Sold Its Soul, about how post-World War II Nazi structure basically just Trojan horsed itself through Operation Paperclip, entrenched itself, made itself indispensable to our military industrial complex and built it up, okay, and helped boom the American economy, made themselves indispensable, as I said. And then I'm in that school of thought that thinks the JFK assassination was a coup, a big coup move, okay? And since then, I think that this Nazi, specifically not German, Nazi International, as Joseph calls it, I refer to it as NIMSA, they've really had essential control over our military industrial complex and increasingly over members of Congress and our S&T and eventually our economy. When you look at 9/11 and you look at Deutsche Bank and their activities and their role and stuff, it's very interesting. And I talk about this I talk about the 9/11 post-war Nazi international connection in Origin, my book Origin. But in NIMSA, How America Sold Its Soul, I go into this again. I lay it out. But I also point out a rise in fascistic philosophy. Now, everybody on the right likes to react and scream, oh no, fascists are all leftists. Baloney. Time to grow up. A fascist can be on the right, okay? Fascism is a type of authoritarianism. Traditionally, until now, it has been a leftist socialist thing. Well, welcome to, the 21st century. An organization has discovered how to apply fascist philosophy to an extreme, and I do say an extreme, right philosophy movement. When I learned about this group, it scared me. It's offensive to me. Someone who spent 20 years, I took multiple oaths, depending upon who I was working for, to defend the Constitution. I plant my flag on the Constitution, not with a political party, not with any religion. Okay, as an American and as a veteran and all the stuff I did, my flag is planted on the Constitution. There's room for all of us. There's room for everybody. That's truly the American ideal. The country, the ideal was never meant for one racial group all sharing the same religion. Okay? Those people are misled. And they may not see it yet, but they will eventually. So anyway, I'm looking at this, and I write about it in my book a couple of years ago, that I released a couple of years ago. And I point out, okay, this Christian nationalism is a problem. It's going to be a problem. It is a problem cloaking itself in the flag and carrying a cross. And I have, until recently, it was mostly crickets. Nobody wanted to hear that. Nobody wanted to hear that at all. Oh, that's all lies. Project 2025, that's a lie. No, it's not. It's a very real thing. And so, you know, I tried to warn about that 2 years ago, well before the election. But things got crazy during the election year. Last year, as we know, heat up, culture war. You know, deciding who the enemy is that presents an existential threat to the United States and our culture, and it's utterly ridiculous. And we'll get into that, I'm sure. But now now that we've had how many months, 9 months of the current Trump administration, which I call MAGA version 2, I find it to be insidiously infected with something very bad. And, you know, and it's getting worse.
Well, there's an argument amongst people in the, I guess you could say, conspiracy community, whether or not Trump is even aware that he is being used to get these agendas pushed forward. At times, it seems that he believes he's in complete control, and he's putting forward these agendas to better America and make things better. And then at times it seems like he's completely controlled and just spouting off an agenda that's been in the playbook for years.
Yeah. He, I think the man is not 100% on health. I think his health might, I'm not sure he's going to survive this term because of his health. And then that's when things really get scary, because the number 2 man,
right?
The number 2 man is heart and soul owned by this movement. But this particular movement, okay, they tried to come at Nixon. Okay. Now, they weren't called the Heritage Foundation. The Project 20 didn't exist yet. That hadn't formed yet. But they even approached Nixon, and Nixon told him, no thanks, get lost. So then they knew they wouldn't get anywhere with Carter, because, oh, go figure, Carter actually, and I'm not a fan of Jimmy Carter as a human being. He's a good man. Okay. He lives that code. As a president, he was awful, but you know, he's a guy that actually lives the ethics that these Christian nationalists claim that they live. So they didn't bother with Carter, but they tried Reagan. They backed Reagan, and Reagan, very shrewd the guy that he was, says, oh, okay, you're going to help me with the campaign, help me get elected. Okay. And then when he got elected, then they started laying on him, you need to do this, and this. And old Ronnie said, you know, I'm president for all Americans, and thank you for your help, but you may go now. And that really pissed them off. And that was the real beginning of, we're going to create this movement. We're going to create this organization, the Heritage Foundation. And they decided, we're going to get more directly hands-on in American politics. And we're seeing now, after 35 or more years, almost 40 years, after they were pissed off by Reagan because he didn't just do their bidding. Now we're seeing the real fruit of their tree. And and I think that they got their hooks into Trump after he lost, or about the time he was, they knew he was pretty much going to lose to Biden. Okay. There's an interesting documentary out there. I'll have to get you the title so you can post it in the description. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. This is kind of mind blowing, but Heritage Foundation operatives bust in a bunch of rabble rousers during January 6th. Charlie Kirk, okay, who didn't deserve to die the way he did, but was not a saint, and I'm damn sick and tired of this sanctification of this guy. This, people don't see what a mind screw is going on there. All they need to do is look up Horst Wessel, and they'll find out who Charlie Kirk is to the Christian nationalist movement. But Charlie Kirk spent several $1,000s of his own money to bus in people to, be there and kind of do whatever it is they were hoping, to accomplish. And then when you mix in the federal agents that were in the mix, you got to wonder, okay, what's going on here? And I think at that point, they started getting their hooks into Trump, into his mind, into his emotions. And you combine that with he's aging, he's at that point where the age is getting to him. Okay. And I do think there is a level of control over him, similar to, I can't think of the character's name, but remember in Lord of the Rings, the one king who Brad Dourif plays, the creepy little Rasputin type advisor who's possessing the king and controlling him like a puppet. I think that's a situation like that going on with these Christian nationalists in his administration and Trump. They're just pushing his ego buttons and they're playing him, and they're so that they can maneuver in and force their policy agenda on the entire country. And their policy agenda is flat out wrong.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's get deeper into who these Christian nationals really are, what they really represent, and the ideologies that they're trying to force upon us.
Well, I've started, I and others, we flipped it because there's less real Christianity, less Christ in there. I call it churchianity, by the way. I got that term from Joseph Farrell, churchianity, because it bears no resemblance to what this Christ guy would really have wanted. But I flip it because the emphasis is on their nationalism. Okay. I call them nationalist Christians, or not C's, which is what they are. So I call them nationalist Christians, not C's. Whether people want to hear that or not, I don't care whether you like it or not, because we've gotten to the point now where screw what people like and want to hear or not. It's time to be real, because we're getting close to the danger point. But they have a very, from my perspective, archaic way of looking at things. For instance, and two of their well-known ministers, okay, church leaders that are big voices in their movement, each enthusiastically advocate taking the vote away from women. In other words, the man of the household. Hear these words coming out of my mouth in 2025. These guys seriously, they're serious. They want to tell the American women, you know what, you're not responsible enough to vote. So what we're going to do is we're going to let the man in your household vote for the household. And they'll say, oh, but it's biblical. Well, don't even get me started on the Bible, which is the self-verifying propaganda that, that it is. They say or do something stupid. You go, hey, wait a minute, that's not right. That's not reasonable. Yeah, well, it's true. Well, who says it's true? Well, our book says it's true. Okay, that's like listening to the used car salesman telling you how great his car is, and don't go over to that other guy's lot because his cars are terrible and evil. Anyway, so that's just one of the things that they're seriously wanting to pursue. taking the vote away from American women. I mean, I know guys, I have good friends, okay, that think I'm overreacting to all this. That, you know what, Trump's actually doing good things for the country. And I get silence, I get crickets from them when I say, okay, I want to hear, because, you know, they have wives and daughters. Tell me what your wife and daughters say when if you know they're faced with their vote being taken away because, you know, some guy in a pulpit thinks that only the men should vote. Tell me how that goes, because that ain't going to fly well, and it shouldn't. You know, nobody, no citizen of this country should have their vote taken away for anything, unless, you know, they become, I guess, a felon, or you know, some degree of whatever, you know, something like that, or they leave the country and give up their citizenship. Fine, but that, you know, that's just one example. They literally see, for instance, transgender people as an existential threat, and they want them eliminated. Okay, now, no matter what you personally think about folks who are transgender, okay, first of all, they're less than 1% of the population, less than 1%. Okay, and people bring up, oh, but they go into women's restrooms and attack and, you know, rape women and children and stuff. No, they don't. When you ask for a case where this has happened, what you end up finding are, hate to say it, white males who identify as male, who are the ones going in restrooms and raping and assaulting. You know, this targeting of the others, of the LGBT, for example, this is right out of the German Nazi playbook in the 1930s. Okay, this was the kind of thing they did. Let's pick an easy target. Okay, transgenders, for a lot of Americans, are an easy target, so they pick the easy targets. Okay, and then it'll be, the next thing will be people who write certain type of literature. I'm not talking about pornography literature, just things they don't approve of. And the next thing will be, well, we don't want naturalized people who are who are immigrants who became citizens. Should they really have the right to vote? You know, and on and so forth. It'll just keep expanding until they decide, yeah, to. One of the things in Project 2025, for example, is to incarcerate all transgender people or LGBT people in asylums. This is one of the things that they have stated, you know, that's in their plan. And what they do when you bring it up is play the narcissistic card of, what are you talking about? They deny that it's true, even though you can point that it's in print. And then they play the, where did you see that? On your website.
Now, let me ask you, depending on who you ask, they will say that this is a Zionist agenda, that the Israeli government and Zionism is pairing with these Christian nationalists to sort of bring about prophecy.
Using them. Oh, God, yeah, they're using them. There's a couple of books you need to read, one in particular on this issue that people need to read that's very eye-opening if you can get your hands on it. It's titled Perfidy, and it's written by the great screenwriter Ben Hecht. Ben Hecht was a Golden Age Hollywood screenwriter, American Jewish guy, and he wrote a scathing expose about Zionism and all of that. And it's very eye-opening about what's going on there. Israel has long, since World War II, you know, and increasingly used the World War II era and what went on to always be the eternal victim. They've been using the United States, obviously, our money, our you know, military assistance, that kind of thing. And they continually get away with it because they push the American Christian
The most ironic part is the Zionists are teaming with the Nazis to achieve these goals, basically.
You need to read Perfidy by Ben Hecht, because he points out exactly how the Zionists back then were cooperating with the Nazis. He names names. Perfidy, Perfidy. People, get your hands on that book. And Ben Hecht, a Jewish American, he was trying to tell people this whole thing about the state of Israel, but what's happened is, see, we had the Schofield Bible, and I'm forgetting the name of the guy who really started getting into the heads of American Christians, and this modern churchianity, Protestant churchianity, evangelism, they take all their cues from this nut in the 19th century who created the rapture, the whole idea of the rapture and all this nonsense. And then the Schofield Bible comes along and just adds to it. So when you hear these Christian nationalists talk about, it's ancient, it's in the Bible that we're supposed to, it's like, no, that only goes back to the 19th century, to a nut, to a theological nut. Basically, they want theocracy. They want a theocratic government. And no, that's pardon? Yeah, they're claiming that, we absolutely need theocratic government, and no.
So you would agree that in a sense they are trying to bring about biblical prophecy, the apocalypse.
Yeah, the prophecy ideas that have basically been generated only less than, back in the 19th century and entrenched in the early 20th century. And you've got some people in the Heritage Foundation structure, their organization leadership, that really believe that if they bring this about, they can get their theocracy. Now think about that. Some of them are also cynical enough to know we're fabricating this. They're willing to fabricate it. It's all about power. And they want that, one of the worst kinds of power there is, and that's theocratic power. Because why is that bad? Because it plays on many, many people's deepest fears and beliefs. Rome figured that out a long time ago when they created the Roman Catholic Church. Wow. They figured that out a long time ago. Fear in people's belief in God. We can manipulate the hell out of that. And then the Puritans came along. See, American evangelism is a product of the Puritans. The Puritans are over there. They do their thing in England with Cromwell. For a time, they get lots of power. And then finally people say, okay, you're nuts. Get out of here. So where'd they go? They came to the Massachusetts Bay Colony, right? And we know what they did there. They burned women and accused them of being witches and all this crazy stuff. Well, the rest of the colony said, you people are nuts. You're keeping your Puritanism there. Okay. And so that eventually led into fundamentalist, Christian or evangelism. Okay. And this going around rah recruiting, we got to build our numbers. We got to convert people. We got to save people. This is a product of that crazy, intense, movement. And here we are today.
You mentioned earlier that we're essentially being put through a massive MK Ultra experiment. This is psychological operations to a degree that it's difficult to fathom. Earlier when I mentioned that there's this other synchronistic layer, I want to get deeper into your thoughts on what's manifesting there. What's the trigger for this? What does it really mean? Like I said earlier, we discussed the Ingersoll Lockwood books, but recently with the Charlie Kirk assassination, they have something that came up that is very interesting, and normally I don't pay too much attention to the predictive programming synchronicities that come up in movies that reflect high-impact events, but the Snake Eyes thing was very interesting to me. There were several connections there that were very spooky to me. And I wonder if this is just something that shows up with very powerful events. It has an energetic effect on the past or our reality in some way. Same thing with the Ingersoll Lockwood books, with Back to the Future movies, all these other things that have predictive programming aspects to it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yes, to all of it. I mean, as far as what's going on, because a variety of things are going on or is going on. You've got my personal intense experience with synchronicity were the 7 years that I stumbled into and was investigating what became my 3 Empire of the Wheel books. And that was my most intense experience with synchronicity that I had up till then. It never really goes away. It's the once you see it, you can't unsee it kind of thing. And what I discovered about it is you can stumble into the fabric of reality to where you see synchronicity are the threads in the fabric of reality. Okay, synchronicities are. And then you get to a point where you go, okay, is this happening because I walked in on this, or I'm poking around with my consciousness looking at stuff, so it's communicating to me, or am I just seeing what is the threads in the fabric of reality? And that's kind of an odd experience when we who live in this material limited part of the spectrum, go to work, have a family, have your fun, live your life, then go to the other dimension. With this dimension being so basic, according to what most of us see and experience, seeing the threads in that fabric can be a very awakening, and oh my gosh, what is this? What's going on? And again, you can't unsee it. Well, the controllers, the people that want to control us, that want to control society and civilization, they're aware of this information too. So even though one can simply pick up a veil and see it, right, observe it, learn about it, well, some people go at it and they want to manipulate it, and they want to pluck those synchronicity strings, like the strings on a guitar and a piano or whatever, to maybe manipulate the past or the future. And I think that during the first half of the 20th century, when the people playing around with human psychology figured out this MK Ultra, what came to be called MK Ultra, this stuff that increasingly somebody has been wanting to play with time and space and events and perception itself, as we know. And I think in this particular issue, theater of issues that we're talking about, I think we're seeing that, and we're enduring and experiencing and suffering through the product of that manipulation. You look close enough, this is a big, wild metaphysical thing going on. Okay. And the more you see that and acknowledge that, the easier it is for you to step back a little bit and not let it affect you so much. If you don't see this, if you refuse to see it this way, because it's, your pastor tells you not to pay attention to anyone behind the curtain, or because, it's so much easier to enjoy the Super Bowl if you don't think about these heavy things, then it's going to affect you more intensely. Okay. It's either going to rile you up and keep you in a state of chaos, which it does to a lot of people, if not most people, or depending upon the individual, some people have a fear of chaos and disorder, so they withdraw and they hide behind, glibness. Oh, it's nothing. Oh, it'll pass. Oh, just ignore it and it'll all go away. it won't. Things will happen around them, and they may not see it till it's too late for them, whatever that too late is. But yeah, I think that all the political machines know exactly what they're doing when they or know what exactly they're intending to accomplish when they start playing with this stuff. And when you have a public that our minds have been played with by both sides now for 24 years directly, we're at a boiling point with this manipulation.
Now, we focused on these Christian nationalists as the infiltrating factor. Would you say that there's multiple factions that are fighting for control over where they want society to go?
Multiple factions within that movement, or
no, not within that
factions?
movement, just different factions that attempt
Oh, of
to
course.
infiltrate whatever power is in control at the time.
Oh yeah, of course. Look, just because the far right are being the complete assholes right now, that doesn't suddenly erase what the left has done either, over the years. And both sides, all parties, they do this. They all have their agendas, look at the Bush and the Clinton years. They were all about serving the deep state and their big corporate buddies, that kind of thing, right? Pushing us towards a globalism, not a good globalism, so they were playing their games, pushing our buttons, pushing our pressure points, like with the economy, doing things that they know will hurt the common folk out there. Okay, in the West, in the United States in particular, they seem hell-bent on destroying the middle class. That seems to be what's, in a way, still going on. So yeah, you still have the left out there who, believe me, when they get their chance to do their shenanigans, we're going to see them doing it. I don't want people to think because my position now, that suddenly I'm a lefty. Are you nuts?
Well, it will be interesting to see how the pendulum swing goes next time around, because we're setting up this infrastructure right now for a surveillance state and AI governments and law enforcement, and we can see where the right wants to go with it, but when the pendulum swings back, there's no telling what this infrastructure will be used for. It's never going to be good either way.
My advice to Americans, anyway, I know there's people all over the world watching this, but to Americans here in the United States, bring it back to the center.
Yeah.
A quick remedy for this madness is let's all come back around the center. Okay, stop with your personal idiosyncratic, what you think America, the extreme, but we need to get rid of these people. We need to control those people. Stop with that. Let's bring it back to the middle, because then these extremes will be left with far less power, if any. See, they're playing. The people on the extremes are playing. Yes, they're pulling, and all they need is that critical mass to agree with them in a given election, and they got power. How we can stop both sides, the left nuts as well as the right nuts. Okay, bring it back to the center. But I'm an advocate of, my God, we're 25 years into a new century. And we got these people that want to go back decades. I know people that I know they're nostalgic over the 80s and the Cold War era. I fought the Cold War. I worked against the pesky, evil Soviet Empire. Okay. Yeah. And, so I did my part for that, but we're 25 years into a new century, and we got people just wanting to cling to a past that, did it really exist the way they're remembering it? No. We need to be going forward. it's a new time, a new, it's always, the world is always changing. So you could say it's a new world, and we need to be smart about this. Let's go into a better future. But no, we got people, I know people that they'd rather burn it all down in a civil war than, go into a different kind
Do you
of future.
think these people in positions of power on the extreme side of things really believe the nonsense that they're preaching, really have these religious ideologies? They really believe that they're going to bring on the end of the world or force prophecy in some way?
Some of them do.
Good Lord.
That's the scary part. A few of these guys, in the extreme evangelist, nationalist Christians, they do believe that. They think that what the apocalypse and all that is the model that God is giving them to run the country and ultimately the world.
Oh, it is insane. Last few minutes, let's get your final thoughts and talk about how we can navigate some of the madness. I mentioned some of the surveillance state technology that we will soon be subjected to. Social credit systems seem to be creeping into our reality more and more every day. It's, like I said in my intro, it's difficult to decipher what you're seeing online because of AI, and this is only going to get worse as we move along. How do we navigate through this?
Well, unfortunately, the technology itself is here to stay, as we know. Too many people it's too entwined and they're dependent on it. We all, I mean, come on, walking around with a computer in your hand is pretty darn convenient.
My career runs off of technology.
Yeah, right. But here's the thing. Don't walk around with it on all the time, for example. Okay. Little things like that. Turn the darn thing off when you're out with your family or friends and you're having a lunch or at the amusement park or whatever. Turn it off. Put it like in the bottom, of your bag, or put it, if you can put it in a safe place where you don't even have to have it on you. That's a start. You have to strike a balance between demonizing technology, because that's more of that evangelistic type thinking with a small e, is, we have to demonize anything we don't glorify. It's this insane extreme. Use the technology to the degree that it's useful to you, but don't get so tied into it that it's, and this is easier said than done right now, but that you're giving the deep state even more access to you. I read an article today that now TSA and immigration is starting to monitor people's phones, and they can pull you out of the line at the airport to pull you into secondary and talk to you about stuff they picked up on your phone without a warrant, a specific warrant. They're using this administrative warrant thing that Trump's using, which is yikes. So now I see where people are saying they're starting to travel with a burner phone. To heck with it. I'll leave my personal phone at home and I'll just have my burner phone for the trip. So do things like that.
Let me ask you,
I know we've only
do
got a
we
couple
check
minutes,
out of politics completely? It does seem that both sides are rotten and infiltrated to the core. How do we navigate that in the future?
Well, unfortunately, in a free society, if you want to stay free to the degree that you are, you have to pay attention to what these jerks are doing.
Right.
You have to pay attention and be careful, but you have to vote. Okay. People say, but my vote doesn't count. Well, wait a minute now. How come the vote counts and then, it doesn't count? It's, you got to decide for yourself. I've decided I'm at least going to vote. I may not vote for the two main choices I'm given.
Right.
I might write in Donald Duck or something, but you unfortunately, you've got to pay attention to this stuff and you got to do your best to vote. One thing for years that my parents always said, my mom said, that my grandma and grandpa would say this. Look, it's a good rule of thumb. Never give a president the Congress. That's always ends up being a bad idea. If the president's Republican, you make sure that Congress is Democrat, and vice versa. You got a Democrat president, you give him or her a Republican Congress. So, just rules of thumb like that. Vote issues. Don't vote party line. Vote issues. But try to minimize the politics and the attention to the politics, and eliminate political obsession. Try to get that out of your daily head, because that's where they want to be. They want you scared. This culture war is one of the biggest propaganda things, that they ever devised, and it turned me off years ago when I heard, the conservative side of the media, culture war. That's how they get you turned again. That's how they get you to hate other Americans, through culture war. Oh, your culture is superior. Just like, they want one religion to rule them all. Yeah. And no way in hell. I know there's a lot of people like me that will resist that to the final minute. Yeah. And that doesn't mean we're demonic enemies.
Well, speaking of, you mentioned you are former military. You used to be involved with the government. Do you see that more people that used to be involved in military government would step up if things started to take a turn for too bad?
I think that's one of the things that certain people, they don't want to hear, because that they don't want the people who, anyway, I won't go there, but I will say this as a former federal agent, and folks hear me on this, as a national security conservative who does not vote Democrat, I'm telling you what the ICE agents are doing with their masks disgusts me as a former federal agent. Yes. That disgusts me. And this crap that, well, they got to protect themselves and their families. Let me tell you, the years I did that work, you could see my face and you could know my name. And you know what? When I took that job, my wife and my kid understood that it was a potentially very dangerous job. This crap that, they got to wear masks and act like brutes and thugs, and deputizing corrections officers and bounty hunters. This whole way that the ICE thing, as a former federal agent, who knows how that's supposed to be done, it's wrong. It's shocking to me how wrong it is. Yeah. But there's, people out there that are just rah-rahing it, thinking it's great, and they're going to pay a price that I don't think they realize is coming up. And they're going to go, oh, wait a minute, we tried to tell you.
Yeah, lots to navigate through these days. Walter, thank you so much. Before I let you go, remind the audience how they can find out more about you.
Okay, you can go to walterbosley.com, my website. That's where my books are and stuff. And we have a fantastic holiday sale going on, 70% off of everything. So if you've ever wanted my books, now's the time to buy them all. And also at Walter Bosley, the Walter Bosley channel at YouTube. And, if anything I've said in this has just made you want to spew venom at me, you can find me at both places.
Excellent. Well, we'll definitely have to do this again soon. Walter, thank you so much. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. Hello, friends. I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description.